You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
The ETS Season 4 Invitational. We've got one more round left of the winner semifinals. We got Tabu versus Child Roland in the Burn Queen Mirror. So this should be fast and furious here.
Oh yeah, it's going to be hopefully a series of very quick games, but we will be seeing two very, very aggressive burn decks being run up against each other. These have pretty similar lists. There are a few minor differences. For example, Child Roland's deck is running a 1 of Granite Monument and 4 of Obliterate, which actually Burn Queen is also running on Tabu's side. We're seeing some Cabal Countesses on both sides. The lists are really quite similar in aspect, and we're going to see who can have the better pilots and the better draws.
Yeah, let's see how they go here. And interesting fact, also, Child Roland came in first place in the event last weekend, I believe, with this same Burn Queen deck. So he's running hot lately.
Yeah, I think Tabu has definitely taken a decent note out of that same page. It looks like they're very similar decks. One thing that Child Roland might have the advantage in is the Suffocates, which he is running 2 of, over the Annihilates, which Tabu is running 2 of. There aren't that many single-colored units in the Stone Scar decks, and so whoever has the faster setup might actually do a little bit better. However, there's a really strong draw out of Tabu's deck, a Ronin plus a Ronin Torch, so we should be seeing that come into effect as we start up Game 1.
Yeah, he drew another unit that's perfect for curve with that Archiport Instigator too, but just an extra Warcry next turn. He probably just does do it and saves the torch for a possible Champion of Chaos or Archiport Instigator from Child Roland's side.
Yeah, we're looking like Ronin trading with a Ronin with the Argentport up gives Tabu a decent amount of extra advantage. Those torches are one of the most relevant cards that you can play, and Roland is definitely a little bit behind here. His Ronin can't really chump block here. You don't really want to do that. And with Argentport Instigator running in, I think that Tabu's in very, very good shape. He's probably going to want to play Ronin and then Quarry. And picking up a free torch is really, really bad for Child Roland's strategy.
Yeah, you thought torch was good when it cost 1. How about if it costs nothing?
Yeah, at this point, Tabu can play down the Ronin, kill the Champion of Chaos for free at the end of his turn, or just choose to save that one and play a 1-drop torch in just a little bit.
Yeah, and Child Roland is not going to be happy to see a 0-cost torch. That's probably actually the game. It's super, super hard to come back from behind in a matchup like this.
Aggro, and it looks like Aggro's going to win, so...
Yeah, well, and especially in the Stone Scar meters, because both of them have so much reach with all of their burn that as soon as you fall behind on board and take like 1 extra hit, you're just going to die to burn.
Yep. Roland has the Obliterates. I think there is something to be said for, like, these decks can only do so much damage without their Bandit Queens. So if Tabu doesn't draw some sort of mid-range finisher, he will give Roland a few more turns to stabilize, but at the moment, Roland's already on the defensive, and being on the defensive against this deck is really quite tough. You don't really want to tilt a deck that is already entirely tilted towards offense back to defense just because you're losing on board.
Most likely. Tabu deciding whether he wants to torch first or quarry first. He opts to torch first and then quarry afterwards so that he can quarry for the unit that was Warcried if he wants to. And it looks like he hit it too, 4-3 Pyro Knight.
Yeah, that Rapid Shot is mighty good as well, but being able to play a 0-cost Pyro Knight seems like a pretty good deal. All of Tabu's cards cost 0. I think that's a decent price for what he's trying to play down.
Yeah, the price is definitely right.
All right, so Roland swings with the Ronin because what else can you do? He can block the other Ronin, but that seems like definitely, once again, you don't really want to go defensive here. This deck only has one direction that it can go, and against the other aggro decks, really the best you can do is just try and go for it.
Yeah, Tabu had a good draw on the play. Child Roland sort of stumbled a bit, didn't have the correct influence, didn't have a unit for a turn, and just got run over. Not much to say about this game.
It's to Obliterate here. That takes out the Pyro Knight, and then From there, it's all downhill. Roland
Yeah,
can,
he's just dead on board.
yeah, he can stay defensive, but it's still lethal. Send the Argent Skater triggers. So that's game one for Roland.
Yep. So moving straight into game two here. Like, we kind of knew this was going to be a fast match, and did not disappoint. That one ended on turn 6.
Yep. So quick death, and Tabu takes the game, and we are moving into game two. There's no sideboards here, not until game 3. So in that case, we are going to see just another mirror match, and it's going to depend, I think, pretty heavily on what kind of hands people get and what kind of mulligans they take.
Yeah. So sort of awkward hand from Tabu here. Doesn't have undepleted power on one, but Chad Roland has the Ronin into Instigator start here. So
Instigator was the game-winning hand last time around. Tabu is looking at Champion of Chaos Pyro Knight, but he's got kind of awkward power in general. He decides to keep this hand. I'm a little bit uncertain of it myself. I'm only seeing 2 power to cast the Champion. There are a lot of ways in which he could miss a step here, and he can't play Pyro Knight to draw with Quarry, so this is really quite far behind for Tabu.
yeah. Being on the play and having 1-drop, 2-drop is a good recipe for victory in this matchup. And Tabu had it last game. Chad Roland has it this game. Unless Chad Roland floods out here, it's going to be really, really tough.
Okay, Tabu plays the Pyro Knight and gets a Stone Scar banner down. He can now block the 2-1 and be kind of defensive. He'll take some damage from the Argent Port in the meantime, but likely to live long enough to actually be a big dude. It's probably one of the best defenders that either deck has. Champion of Chaos, on the other hand, is something that he's not really going to be too willing to sacrifice to Argent Port Instigator, especially since it's such a commanding card in this matchup.
Yeah, so Chad Roland did have to skip his turn, which is pretty crucial, maybe giving Tabu a shot to get back in the game. But then Chad Roland immediately draws a Warcry buffed Cabal Countess. So if Tabu doesn't find a torch, he's going to get mauled by that. She just hits so hard.
Yeah, it's a rough setup. You definitely need the torch. Tabu has lots of weird options here. So Champion of Chaos is very vulnerable to torch, but so is Argent Port Instigator. And Argent Port Instigator punishes you a little bit for getting hit with torch, since you lose that 1 point of health, and that's really relevant in Stone Scar Burn. Tabu elects to play 2 blockers here, which means the champion, the Cabal Countess, is going to come down. If he had Ronin and then quarried for a torch, he'd probably have a better chance here. But as it stands, he's probably going to take 8, and then he's going to spend his next turn digging for a torch.
Yeah, Roland picks up a Bandit Queen, so this is just a devastating attack here. Tabu probably is going to have to chump block that Countess with the Oni Ronin.
Yeah, there is that advantage at least. The Ronin deals 1 damage to him nonetheless. He finds a Diplomatic Seal, but now it's all about quarrying for that torch.
So he finds a Champion of Chaos, which he could cast this turn.
It's not a bad card in this situation. He will eventually get a 5th power for Obliterate, so he could just stall here. Play a blocker in front, keep Obliterate up. Defense is almost suited to him at this point, just because he's got less power than Roland, and Roland has the possibility of flooding out. It's not a great way to do it, but it does mean that he stays above 12, and 12 is usually about the point where you're getting obliterated into Flame Blast. 13 is usually a little bit safer, I would say.
I just don't think you can afford to quarry a second time this turn. Like, you have to play to the board in this matchup. As soon as you fall behind, you're dead. And I mean, and Tabu's already behind. Like, if Chad Roland has 2 burn spells, then he loses.
Yeah, at this point, because he's defensive, I would say he probably wants to sacrifice the Argent Port Instigator. And beyond that, it's going to be kind of hard to say whether he wants to block the Bandit Queen.
Interesting. Roland opting to ultimate the Ball Countess instead of obliterating that Champion of Chaos.
That seems fairly reasonable. The Obliterate can come out later to defend the Cabal Countess, and the Cabal Countess is currently just really doing its job. So, yeah, this looks okay. Cabal Countess sets up 8. Argent Port Instigator turns it into 2. Tabu's now at 11, which is not a good number to be at. And playing a Pyro Knight on 5 is always the scariest set of business. Like, you know that there can be another power, and if there is one, then that's a 6/5 that you have to deal with. I don't think Tabu has a choice here. I think he has to kind of just... Yeah, he didn't pick up the card he needed against the Cabal Countess, and that means it's going to take 8 and an Obliterate for lethal.
Yeah, that's just the game. So 2 quick games. The person on the play had a good start and ran roughshod over the competition. Oh, Ultimate's the Pyro Knight, so it's actually not lethal here. Wait, yeah, okay.
No,
if Tabu had jump blocked the Countess, he would have lived, but...
For 1 turn, yep, and then he could have obliterated into Torch, which would have stabilized the board. He'd still be dead to obliterate, but I think that that attack was probably a little weirder than obliterate on the champion.
Yeah, he was just so far behind. There's no way that Tabu was coming back that game.
Yep.
Okay, all right, so now they move to sideboards. So they both have some solid cards for the matchup, but solid different cards. So Child Roland has Guardian Drones to block early in the ground, plus suffocates and annihilates, whereas Tabu has Plagues to clear away the ground, in addition to the suffocates and annihilates.
Yeah, it makes sense that these 2 decks would be 1-1 against each other. So it's really going to depend on what players picked for sideboards and how well they chose to sideboard just in general. Like, I think that there's a lot of skill involved in the sideboarding, and that will probably determine the remainder of these matches. Suffocates, of course, those are super solid on Tabu's side. Plague is sort of reasonable, but you really have to question whether it's the right type of card. I sometimes am not sure if Plague is ever the right card in the sideboard. It's okay for dealing with cards like Dawnwalker. It's very good for dealing with Pyro Knights and Oni Ronins, but with the War Cries getting stacked up, there are ways in which Plague can just not be a reliable card for removal.
Yeah, I guess both players also have the option of bringing in some more large charge shots in the Soulfire Drakes, but I just don't think the matchup is about that. Like, you don't want to add 5 drops. You want to add 1s, 2s, 3s.
Soulfire Drakes are very likely to get torched. Having charge and flying on every one of your units will eventually win you out the game, but the question is, are you going to lose while you're just sitting there looking at the Soulfire Drakes? Lurking Sanguar on Child Roland's side, along with Lothrai Falchion, gives him some really interesting options to stay offensive while just gaining health back and being very, very good at that particular. In addition, there's a Madness in Child Roland's deck, which I actually really like. He's not using any sort of combust or sacrifice ability, but Madness is a card that you can use to just steal a win by taking one of your opponent's biggest blockers, turning it into one of their biggest attackers. Against the burn decks, it will more often be used to steal a Cabal Countess or a fully charged up Pyro Knight, maybe even an Impending Doom. In any of those situations, that's just a burn spell for 5 damage that costs 3.
And so Tabu, as we saw in his redraw before he redrew it, brought in Sabotage as well, which is interesting. I mean, it does take care of the big burn spells, but it also doesn't affect the board.
I don't like Sabotage at all in this matchup. I think it's nice to be able to get rid of the Flame Blast and the Obliterate, but not only are you sacrificing board, you're also potentially sacrificing cards because you have to throw that Sabotage. And if you throw the Sabotage in an empty hand, what's going to happen? If you throw it in a hand that has just a torch in it, you're going to get torched in the face. Like, there aren't that many things that you can actually sabotage here, and really, when you do sabotage, all you're doing is just delaying the burn deck. You're not actually preventing or in any way building against it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. You just want to play to the board as much as possible because it's just a very board-centric matchup.
Yep, so Quarry here from Child
Lurking
Roland.
Sanguar off the Quarry.
It gets cheaper, but then it becomes free, so I think Roland's feeling pretty good about that. And not only that, it's also a Warcry Lurking Sanguar, so it's a little less vulnerable. There's not really much that deals 2 damage in either deck, so it being a 5/3 is not much different than a 4/2, apart from the life total.
Yeah, big lifesteal guy is really good, though. Wow, that's some interesting sideboard tech that I did not expect to see here.
Yeah, I fully expect the Lurking Sanguar and the Lothrai Falchion to make it into this deck. They're really solid choices, and I think Roland was very smart to put them in his sideboard for the mirror matchup. We do see the Annihilate in Vara's favor in Roland's hand. Tabu is, I think, in a lot of trouble here. He can play down Champion of Chaos, but it's not going to trade with anything. Well, it's just going to trade with the Lurking Sanguar because he can't afford to let that live. He can play Impending Doom, but that also trades with the Sanguar, and really, Sanguar is just dominating. It's 5 health, it automatically forces him to block and kill one of his units, so he gets to keep the rest of his board. Tabu could pick up the 2 drops and just allow himself to lose a bunch of health, but
the Varus favor finished it off. Jeez.
Yeah. This is
brutal sequence from Child Roland.
I think it was correct to just block the Sanguar, but I think Tabu's in a lot of trouble either way.
Yeah, he's kind of like playing for value now because he's so far behind on life, but when your opponent has double Obliterate in their hand, playing for value doesn't work very well. And a Flame Blast as well.
To show him what's up will be all that Roland needs to do, and then at that point, the game's over.
I guess Tabu could draw one of those sabotages and hope Child Roland whiffs on fire for the rest of the game, but alas, it is not to be, and that'll wrap up Game 3. Another quick one over on turn 6.
Yeah, Bandit Queen would be very unusual here, I think, in comparison to an Obliterate or a Torch. Tabu doesn't really have a play, though, so obliterates the Pyro Knight, and Roland just obliterates right back. That'll be game.
Yep, just obliterates back and forth. So I don't think we've seen a single game go past turn 6 yet, have we?
Seems very unlikely for Burn Queen. I'm not 100% certain. But yeah, in any case, Roland has set up the obliterates, and now we are seeing him leading 2-1. He just has to win one more game. I think with the lifesteal units that he's siding in, and with the sides that we've seen from the other deck, it looks like neither player is changing their sideboards, so I think Roland's pretty favored here.
Think Roland just outsideboarded him in the mirror here?
Yeah, I think there was definitely like a bit of a skill change here. So we see Torch into Instigator for Roland. That hand is actually keepable just because Diplomatic Seal can be played second. So he gets Instigator, Instigator, and Instigator, Instigator, plus all of that removal is very, very strong. In addition, the Instigators actually play really well with the Lurking Sanguar because he will be able to get the Instigator procs just off of a removal spell. He doesn't need to get through for damage with both units. He just needs to have them both attack.
Oh, yes. So next turn, or I guess it'd be turn 4 or whatever, even if the board got locked up, Child Roland could Annihilate with 2 Instigators in play and then play Sanguar.
Yep, the Suffocate here, however, does hurt him quite a bit, and now Sanguar's looking a lot less likely to be played. This is the weakness of Sanguar against the Stonescar Burn deck, is that if your opponent has enough light removal spells, and Stonescar Burn decks often do, then you're not going to get Sanguar until turn 5, which is not a turn you want to be playing anything very small on.
I guess even on turn 5, it still is a lifesteal unit, which is the most important thing.
Yep, a lifesteal unit that dies to Torch and Obliterate, but a lifesteal unit nonetheless. We see Roland swinging in here. He can pick up a 2-for-1 if his opponent decides to be defensive, although it seems very unlikely that Tabu will decide to be defensive since he's ahead on board for the moment. Roland will probably have to throw one or both of his units. He could throw the Torch right now to prevent War Cries from the Oni run-in, but again, this is Stonescar Burn. These games don't last very long. The War Cries probably not going to be as relevant as it would be in a Rakano deck.
Yep, just wants to take out the Pyro Knight, it looks like, to make sure it doesn't get ultimated later. No, just decides to take it all.
Yeah, I think he's okay with leaving stuff on board here, since that basically just means that he gets to play Sanguar later, and if Sanguar gets him health back, then he just wants to kill the big stuff, specifically Cabal Countess and the other card there. Oh, that was interesting. The Lurking Sanguar became free because Impending Doom damaged him and Argenport Instigator damaged him. I actually didn't know that interaction.
It counts even if your opponent's units deal damage to them.
I wonder if that's a bug. I'm not sure about the text on the card. You can't actually play it either way.
2 units dealt damage to your opponent.
No, but that was just a really interesting thing to see. So there you go. Just really, really fun.
If there ever becomes a way to play Sanguar on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, exactly. Like ambush for free. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it could be relevant in those crown matchups where you're playing Lurking Sanguar, guys. Make a note.
We're learning today.
Yeah, I've never seen that interaction before, and that's pretty delightful. Okay, so Vara's
Varus favor is going to take care of the Sanguar before it can steal any health here.
Yeah, again I'm like really skeptical about these plagues. They do take out Ronins and Pyro Knights, but there's so many units above even 2 health
Yeah, it
here.
doesn't do anything against the impending dooms and champions of chaos of the world, really. Like, there's still the biggest thing on the board, even after getting -1/-1.
Okay, so now Roland's probably pretty likely to use a torch. Get rid of the Pyro Knight, make sure that there aren't any big things happening. It's a question of whether he wants to play Pyro Knight here. He's going to be able to play it next turn if he draws a power and just make it a 6/5, and that's really good. Like, just having a 6/5 means that you're less vulnerable to obliterates, you're less vulnerable to torch, you're less vulnerable to so many other things that could clear your board. I think that Roland is right in saying that I'm just going to develop the board and get everything I can out of this, but at the same time, like, this is a risky play.
Yeah, Tabu does not have the removal spell, and now he is forced to reveal that his last card in hand is yet another power. Although,
Yeah.
not that Child Roland has anything going on in hand, so it's going to be kind of first to draw a big burn spell here, I think.
Roland is flooding. Whoever gets the obliterate first is pretty likely to win. It was good that Tabu got rid of the Lurking Sangor to be sure, but Large Import Instigator is a big threat, and Roland is going to be forced to block the Oni Ronin with his 2/2. I guess there's actually a situation where you
Tabu
don't
has
block
a
the Oni
2-turn
Ronin.
clock here, I guess. Like, if Tabu attacks with both, Child Roland go to 5 and can only attack back for 8, so Tabu would live at 1.
I think
So I guess Tabu does just attack here.
I think in this situation you don't block Oni Ronin, because to 6, so you're already vulnerable to obliterate, which is the big deal. If you take the 2 damage from not blocking Oni Ronin, then you have your lethal. I guess it doesn't matter either way since the double damage applies to both players. If Tabu has a removal spell, he wins.
Yeah, he took the same amount of damage whether he blocked or not. And they're both at 1 health, and they both just draw only power for 2 turns, and then that's it. Child Roland takes it.
I kind of wanted Roland to play that Impending Doom, even though it's just the wrong play. Like, if you get annihilated, you lose, but it's kind of fun to have an Impending Doom out and avoid your Impending Doom.
So flavorful.
Yep. All right. So is that the 3rd round for Roland? I believe that Roland has taken the round and will be moving up.
Yeah, on to the winners finals. So we'll be going back to the losers bracket matches right after a short break here.
See you guys then.